Been a great start to the cooking theater here at the 2012 International Home and Houseware Show, hasn't it, folks? Woo! Woo! There we go. Well, it's only going to continue. We now have one of the hardest working men in the cooking business right now. He is a restaurateur with his fabulous Il Mito up in Milwaukee, just up the road. It's not too far away. An Italian, Mediterranean-inspired restaurant. Heard it's absolutely phenomenal. Chef, he's also a caterer and also has his cooking studio where he teaches at up there as well. Put your hands together for Chef Michael Feker.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to the stage. And what we're going to do today, we're going to create a beautiful, beautiful medley of flavors for you. Something that is a classic is goat cheese and beets. And beets is something that we should use on a regular basis, and not only the root, but also the leaf. What I'm going to do for you is a risotto, because there's a myth that risotto is difficult, but it really is not. What risotto is, it needs a lot of attention. And I'm also going to use a little bit of apple smoked bacon. I'm going to render the bacon, use the fat to saute my sofrito, which is the onion and the garlic. So the apple smoked bacon is simple. They have used apple wood to smoke the bacon, and in the process you have that sweetness. One of the things about risotto which is very important, of course, is using the right ingredients. Second of all, this broth should never be less than boiling and then simmering. Why is that? Because as you're going to be sauteing the grains and you start the cooking process, if the broth is too cold, the pores of the grain that is now open due to sauteing absorbs the cold liquid and sits still and stops the cooking process. And for that reason, it does not release its natural starch correctly, and it becomes gummy from inside out instead of cooking from outside in. By the way, any question you have about food that you love to eat and you hate to cook, I'm here. Ask me, I'll be more than happy to answer. If I don't know the answer, I'll make it up. And then you have no way to prove it until you go talk to somebody else. You notice again, I'm rendering the fat of the bacon. I want to use that fat to cook all the flavors. Why is that? In the toasting process of the rice, the grains are going to absorb all those flavors. So just to put bacon in a dish and say I added bacon for it, if it's not being used in layers correctly, you're not going to take advantage of the natural flavors and the intense flavor. Not only bacon, in any other ingredient. After this, what we're going to do, we're going to take a little bit of onion, and we're going to take the onion and put it in there and start the natural caramelization. Caramelization is all about evaporating the water liquid of an ingredient and intensifying the sugar content of that same ingredient. We're going to be dealing with two of the major sugar content ingredients. What is that? One of them is beets, another one is onion, the third one is carrot. Those are the three that have the highest sugar content between all the ingredients that we use in the kitchen or in nature. Another thing about risotto, paciencia, patience. Guys, you gotta do this with patience, otherwise you can't rush. Food is all about love. It's not rocket science, but it's passion science. I wanna make sure that this is nice and toasted, otherwise again, what's gonna happen? When I add the risotto grains are gonna cook, the cooking process is gonna happen, but you're going to have that gummy texture, fatty bacon. You want the fat to be rendered and you want it to be nice and crisp. Next, garlic. Why didn't we put the garlic in first? That's the tendency that we all have in many ways. Very low water content. It tends to burn on you. So the ingredient with 1,000 faces, which is garlic, because every stage of garlic has its own specific flavor. You want to use the moisture from the onion to help the garlic from not burning. So we're just going to start toasting the garlic. If you look at some Portuguese recipes or the way they do their food, they love their garlic toasted. The arrabbiata from Rome, the sauce, the garlic is toasted. Here we just want it translucent. You see in many recipes, cook your onion or garlic until translucent. What does that mean? Allow it to release its water, then it looks more of a see-through than just solid. Now we're gonna go in the pan, and I hope all of you guys can see these yum-yums down here. You see that? That beautiful brown, that's the rendering of the fat and the natural sugars of the ingredients caramelizing and sticking to the bottom of the pan. Next, we're gonna put the rice in here. Why do we do this? Many cultures do this. The Spaniards, the Mexicans, the Portuguese. or ourselves, when we do a rice pilaf, we toast our rice grain. Why? For a couple of reasons. One, the oil coats the grain, and I'm going to tell you why is that important in a moment. But two, you're going to get this beautiful nutty flavor of the grain instead of having that starchy flavor all the way through. The reason the oil coating each grain is important is that way the liquid does not penetrate into the grain fast or too fast, and the starch is not released too fast. So again, you have this magnificent creamy risotto. Notice I'm not adding any seasoning, guys. When you're dealing with reduction and evaporation of liquid, you add your seasoning last. Whether it's your sauce, whether it's your soup, whether it's beans or anything else. You always add it last because, first of all, the rule that you learn in culinary school and through your experience in cooking, you can always add, but you can never remove. And that is very true. Now, you have this beautiful nutty aroma that is being released by the risotto. You add enough wine, very little, not much. We add enough wine to be able to grab these beautiful yum-yums that are sticking in the bottom and scrape it all and bring it all together and create a great, great party here. You notice the broth or the wine has changed color. That's because all those brown foam or flavors that were in the bottom of the pan don't exist anymore. You notice? You see my finger here? It's gone. They're all within the starch of the rice. One more thing. You first said you should never add cold liquid to a risotto when you're cooking it. Why did you just add cold wine? Reason being because the rice grains were not awake yet. The starch had not been released. Now, from here on, they're absorbing. Before, they were giving starch out due to a little bit of heat of this pan. We cook the wine out. Why? Because we want the alcohol to evaporate, we want the flavors to intensify. That's why I beg of you, do not cook with a wine that you're not willing to sip. It needs to be moderately priced, it doesn't need to be expensive, but at least there's got to be some passion into it. Because if there is no passion in the liquid that you put in here, that flavor is going to be passionless. We're going to go with our broth now. 1 and 2. And we want to do this little by little because we want to keep the rice thirsty. Let's bring the main player into play now. I have the beets that are diced and I have the beets that are grated. Why? We did this in this manner. They could all be diced. When you grate an ingredient, you break all the connecting fiber or as much as possible. By doing so, that connecting fiber releases whatever the major component of that ingredient is. In this case, is sugar and water. So now the beets are going to release this intense flavor into your risotto. They're not just going to look like you just added beets, or they're not just going to be red in color. You're going to have this intense flavor. Look what's going to happen to the color of the risotto right now. Ta-da! Magic of food. If you ever roast beets at home and you want to peel it, you see your hand becomes completely red and you really got to work hard. I am waiting for the diced beets to be added. Why? Our mouth needs to sing with a couple of things, flavor and texture. So if everything is mushy, your palates are going to get tired after a while. You want a little bit of crunch. So we're going to wait to add the diced beets. What a beautiful color. I amaze myself. I don't know why I'm so good. I just don't understand this. Now we add the diced beets. And after the diced beets, it's time. The rice grains are telling me, hey, I'm thirsty. I need some more liquid. And we're going to add a little bit more broth. One thing that I ask you is also when you decide to make risotto, focus on the risotto. Don't try to do too many things in the kitchen. Make it peaceful and focus all your attention to risotto. And once you get it down, then you start doing risotto and another dish. Then you start multitasking. Cooking is all about timing as well. You know, many of you, they're shaking your head because you understand. When you're serving food and you have events and you have guests over, entertaining is about enjoying yourself. A lot of times we're slaving in the kitchen when we're entertaining. The whole idea of entertaining is being a guest at your own event. And that is what is so important. So with risotto, focus on it. And if it gets overcooked, guys, it's not the end of the world. You make it, you lay it out, you let it get cold, and you make risotto cakes. And you say, hey, this was all thought about. It was supposed to be like this. What a beautiful color. I can't get over this. This is amazing. And it's just beautiful ingredients doing the work for me. Couple of other things. We have some lemon zest. The natural oil of the ingredient is in its skin. So is orange, grapefruit as well. That's why we zest it. Why is it so important? They say make sure you don't get the white when you're zesting. That is the bitterness. That is the layer, which is the layer between the flesh and the skin, or the zest. We also have some herbs here. We have a little bit of thyme, and thyme with that beautiful flavor of thyme and that earthiness of the beets is going to go beautiful. Notice I'm leaving a little bit of each herb on the side. A little bit of Italian parsley or flat leaf parsley, and some basil. Every one of them, they're going to be a little bit on the side. Why? Cooked herbs and raw herbs are completely different. It can be even a little bit of introduction of heat to the herb, but they have completely different flavor profiles and they tease your palate differently. So I want the broth and this sea of flavor that we're creating here to grab some of these flavors while the grains are cooking. And then we're going to add some more on top to create this contrast. No yawning for you. Huh? I saw that. I put you on the spot. I love that. You're supposed to say, chef, you're so interesting, I do not want to yawn. There's a little bit more broth, and keep on cooking. Now, also another thing, I am making such a huge batch of risotto. Your risotto is going to be cooked much faster, especially when your broth is boiling or simmering at a high temperature, because when you add cold broth, the cooking stops and you got to wait till it picks up again. And that's, again, another reason why you get these gummy risotto. Another thing I want you to notice is, of course, you've heard it before, but you see it now. I have not stopped stirring. Why is that? When the risotto is cooking and is releasing its starch, the starch tends to stick to its best friend, which is the grain. By mixing it and stirring constantly, that starch releases itself and gets away from its friend and meets other starch components within the dish, so it becomes creamy. That's the difference between a creamy risotto and a risotto that has no cream, because that step wasn't done and it's clumpy. The zest, again, I did not want to cook that out. I wanted to make sure that the raw flavors of the zest remain. There's a very, very important step in risotto cooking, and it's called mantecare. Mantecare is when we add the Parmesan and the butter last to the risotto. When that step is the right time to take place, for that step to take place, is we want to make sure that the risotto is off the heat. So don't rush it. When you see the butter or the Parmigiano, don't rush to put it in. That doesn't mean that it's going to shorten your cooking process. Also, the reason that we want it to be off the heat is because we do not want any direct heat underneath the risotto, so it does not separate the fat content and the water content of the ingredient.